Hey, and welcome back to the channel. Today, I want to compare two premium kettles, the Brewista Artisan Kettle and the Fellow EKG. Both are at similar price points, and when comparing to choose a kettle that's attractive and functions really well, people oftentimes compare these two. So let's go ahead and get that B-roll started, and we'll get into the review. Quick disclaimer before we dive right in. I purchased the Fellow EKG back in September 2019 with their Kickstarter. Brewista recently sent the Artisan Kettle to provide content for and review. There's only so much you can do with an electric kettle to differentiate it from its competitors. So let's go ahead and get started and look at some of the common features between both of them. Some basics. You can choose Fahrenheit or Celsius. Brewista holds about a liter of water, and Fellow holds what they say 0.9 liters when they get to the max line. And each kettle can hold water temperature with a small difference in how this is accomplished. Both kettles are extremely accurate. I ran a quick test between both kettles to check the accuracy to 208 degrees, and after 10 tests from room temperature, each averaged out at about 208 degrees. So I'm linking a spreadsheet for those of you that are interested. Both kettles heat up extremely quickly, between 4 to 5 minutes, with ranges between 205 to 212 degrees Fahrenheit. Once again, there's a spreadsheet down below that you can see more details. I've been pretty happy with each of them on how fast they speed up, and I really have no complaints. And on paper, both are pretty close to the same. So let's go ahead and look at some of the differences, which in reality turn out to be pretty major. The first thing that we're going to look at is the flow rate. The Fellow EKG includes a flow restrictor, which allows for a slower pour. The Artisan Kettle does not have one, and it has a slightly larger pour spout, which means a faster flow rate. In some ways, you could say that the Brewista actually has more control, and by this, I mean that the range of control is greater on the Artisan Kettle. It is up to you to control all aspects of the pour, and I suspect when looking at marketing material and quotes from baristas who have used this in competitions, when they talk about the great control, this is what they mean. But this also means that you, the user, have to focus and look at your consistency for each of the pours to see how much control you have. The Fellow EKG has a slower flow rate, so you can get consistent pours every single time because that range of control is less. The slower and more controlled pour on the EKG means that each pour is relatively the same speed. I can be sure that I'm not adding one more variable in my pour overs. Next, let's take a look at the handle. The Artisan Kettle has a more balanced feel when holding and pouring, but I'm really not sure that that's a good thing. The EKG has a weighted handle, which in the end actually allows you to control your pour a bit better. Along with the flow restrictor and the slower pour, I find that this gives you the ultimate control, how I defined it, and more importantly, consistency. Now, let's take a look at the ease of use between the two kettles. This is quite possibly the biggest difference besides the flow restrictor when comparing the two models. Fellow is known for its stylish, minimalistic design on many of the products, including this kettle. When you look at the kettle, you are presented with one button. And this does two things. It turns on the kettle and it changes the temperature with a dial. On the back of the base, you can change between Fahrenheit and Celsius and whether or not to hold the temperature up to an hour when you take the kettle on and off its base. Now, let's look at the Artisan Kettle. First, you will notice that they are touch-sensitive buttons. 8 buttons to be exact. When I first pulled the kettle out of the box, I actually had to look at the manual to figure out how to use the kettle and what each button did. Honestly, this was not a great start when it comes to a kettle, but I figured, if I learned it, and it would become second nature to me. I could get into the nitty-gritty of all the different functionalities of the buttons, but at the end of the day, the functionalities are all comparable to what the EKG offers. So let's dive a bit deeper into some of the more confusing aspects of the Brewista Artisan Kettle. You can press the temperature button multiple times to increase at different preset temperatures. To change the temperature 1 degree, you press the plus or minus button multiple times to increase or decrease. Every time you remove the kettle, and if you want to keep it at your desired temperature, you must first press the keep warm function. There's also a fast boil function, which gets you to a boil a little bit quicker. And since they are touch sensitive buttons, they do not always register when I touch them. It's infrequent, but sometimes it gets quite annoying. By the way, if you're enjoying this video and would like to continue to see more videos like this, please like and subscribe or comment below on other videos that you would like to see. Let's get back to the review. One other minor difference is the shape of the pour spout. The Artisan Kettle has a slightly longer spout, which the only time this really mattered was when I was using the origami dripper, and on my EKG, it was really not uncommon for me to hit the protruding corners of the origami. I don't really have this problem with the Artisan Kettle. And speaking of the shape, the Brewista base is quite a bit larger than the fellow EKG. The Brewista base sits about 9.5 inches in length and around 8 inches in width. The fellow EKG is a little under 7 inches for the length and the depth. Okay, so overall, both kettles perform beautifully. And at the end of the day, I think the biggest determiner is for looking at what the range is on the pour and how you want to define the control. Personally, I prefer the pouring style of the fellow EKG when I'm making coffee. I try to keep as many variables as consistent as I can. Using the fellow EKG allows me to do just that. But there's really a place for the Artisan Kettle for those that want the greatest amount of range for your pour overs. It does allow for some different styles of pours, and you can intentionally create a little bit more agitation depending on the kind of recipe that you're doing. I would love to know what kettle you have or that you're looking for. Are you debating between these two kettles? Why would you pick one or the other? And if you're thinking about purchasing either of these kettles, there's an affiliate link in the description to help me produce coffee content that helps you.